Welcome to Amidon Planet. I'm your host, Joel Amidon. Thank you for joining me in this never-ending quest to learn how to teach better. Today on episode 135 of the podcast is a trio of math educators. Dr. Zandra De Araujo from the University of Florida, Sam Otten from the University of Missouri, and Amber Candela from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, to talk about their project, Practice-Driven PD. Amidon Planet is about learning how to teach better, and that's exactly what they are thinking about. This work is right at where teachers are at. It lives right where teachers are at and thinking about how to provide what they call instructional nudges to just get a little bit better. It kind of reminds me of like Atomic Habits, that book by James Clear. Just what are the little changes you can make on a daily basis, and if you get 1% better, every single day, they talk about how exponentially better you get because you're growing 1% on 1% on 1%, and that's kind of where this is at. It kind of lives on how you think about your own improvement as a person, or how you would improve an organization. You can't. Yes, there are opportunities for big changes, but then what are the incremental changes that can be made? And that's kind of at the heart of what they're going to talk about. But they can talk about it much better than I can. So without further delay, here's my conversation with the Practice-Driven PD crew. Amber, Sam, Zandra, how are y'all? Good afternoon.
Good after. I was looking at the clock. I'm like, is it afternoon? It's like that time change. So yeah. It's hard to tell.
Hey.
Is it nighttime?
That's right. Hey, but we're here on Amidon Planet. Thanks for coming. So could you, it's always awkward for me when there's like more than one person, because it's like, hey, because I think you're all awesome people, but I want them to get to know you a little bit before we get into this conversation. So Xander, do you want to kick it off? Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I think you're an awesome person too, Joel. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'm Zandra. I like to think about math. I like to garden, and I love dogs as well. So if anybody ever wants to talk to me about those things, then I'm always happy to do so. My real job is I'm the director of math at a center at the University of Florida called the Lastinger Center. So I get to do a lot of policy work and teacher ed work there, which is super fun. And I like thinking about incremental PD with these folks.
Fantastic. And we're going to move west from there. Okay. Now let's go to Amber. Amber, can you share a bit about yourself?
Hi, Amber Candela. I love cats, have a couple, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, which I affectionately call UMSL. And I've been in St. Louis for 12 years, and I love St. Louis. Anyone ever wants to come visit, I'm an amazing tour guide. And I've just been really digging into incremental PD and nudges with these two and having a lot of fun with it and finding joy.
Yeah. And we'll say more about that. I want to get into that partnership thing, because whenever I see y'all at conference, like, hey, they're having fun. And Sam.
Yeah. Hi.
Share a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Sam Otten. Happy to be here. Dr. Amidon and we call ourselves podcast brothers in the math ed space, keeping the math ed audio waves going. But I host the Math Ed podcast, and I'm originally from Michigan. I grew up with a mom who was an educator and my dad who was a farmer. And I went to Lower Michigan for my grad school experiences, undergrad and grad school. But I've been at the University of Missouri, the one that's in Columbia, just a little bit further west than Amber's. At Columbia, this is my 14th year now. And I was also looking back, and Zandra and I have been writing together for 10 years now. Wow. Which is the majority of my math ed life. And then Amber has been with Zandra way longer than that. So yeah, it is a fun partnership, and it is, when we get to share these ideas and talk about it, we do enjoy it. And we also do want the critiques. So I'm glad we're going to get to some of those as well.
Awesome. And Sam, you're from the UP of Michigan though.
Yep. Right? Upper Peninsula, born and raised.
Like Houghton area?
No, I'm more on the east side. So I'm more like by the bridges. So there's a Mackinac Bridge that goes to Lower Michigan, and there's an international bridge that goes over to Canada, and I'm right in between those two bridges.
How do you do the mitten thing again? Like you hold your hand?
So you can do both hands, with one hand as the Lower Peninsula mitten and the other hand as the Upper Peninsula.
Got it. Okay.
There you go. Yeah. And Wisconsin, you can do a mitten too. It's just one.
Little.
We just need one. Yeah. Little one. And remind me sometime at a conference to show you my thumb where I got it sewn up in Houghton after I skied over it on the Copper Mountain or whatever, way
Hmm.
up in the way north. Yeah. Yeah,
Ouch.
that's a story. Anyway, all right, back into it. So I I saw at NCTM, I saw I believe that was part of a research presentation, several research presentations where you all were presenting your practice-driven professional development materials and the research that goes along with it. And seriously, I probably annoy my students and other people about it because I'm like, I was just blown away by. I mean, I know you've been doing this stuff, but it was like I was blown away by just like the thoughtfulness in it, the ease of it, the thing that you could be like, just send a link to somebody like, hey, have you ever thought about using this strategy? Like, and someone could just go with it, and I just loved it. So it's got this idea of instructional nudges. So let's just start there. So what is an instructional nudge? And actually, maybe what led you to taking this approach to instructional nudges?
Cool. Maybe I can talk about like some of the history and then Sam can
Perfect.
chime in as well as we go into instructional nudges and then Amber can come in. Kind of like historically, we can work it through.
Yeah.
So, like Sam said, we started writing together like 10 years ago. We started at the University of Missouri almost the same time. I started 2 months before Sam, technically. But he's since outlasted me since I moved to Florida. But he and I got together and we had similar thoughts around like, wouldn't it be cool if in a teacher's guide you kind of like had like a more interactive or like live teacher's guide? And Sam, like chime in at any time if I misrepresent history, have a Mandela effect or something. And so we talked about it and we had a writing retreat. Where was that? It was like at a hotel. We rented an office
Just
space there.
in Columbia, we just got ourselves a writing space just to get off campus and like kind of lock ourselves down to do some writing and
Wow.
things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and at that meeting, we kind of were like fleshing out the ideas of what was to become the 2 minute teacher's guide, which still exists, 2minuteteachersguide.com.
We'll put a link in
And
the show notes. Yeah, there we go.
awesome. And so that was kind of like our first foray into like what if we did like, very small incremental kind of suggestions for teachers around teaching mathematics. And so I can let Sam take it from there.
Yeah, the main idea there, I think, was 2 minutes was actually part of the idea was to be very, very short. And it was to just kind of be like a little bit of a voice on the shoulder of a teacher to be like, hey, are you about to teach factoring trinomials? Here's a cool little idea, like something you might try. And the idea, so it was, we call it 2 minute teacher's guide because it was kind of like along with whatever section they're teaching, which is often how teachers think about it. They often
Yeah,
think
yeah.
like, I'm teaching this topic, I'm teaching that topic, I'm doing 4.1, then 4.2, then 4.3. We were thinking like, what if we could just give 1 or 2 minutes of a little suggestion for that lesson? And without, again, you'll see this as a theme. We're not trying to make huge changes for the teacher. We're not trying to say, you need to abandon your curriculum and try a whole different approach, and you need like a different vision for teaching. We are much, much smaller and saying, like, oh, you already have a lesson going, you're already good to go. Well, here's just one little friendly suggestion. But when we were doing it at that point, 2 minute teacher's guide, it was kind of like trying to tag the suggestion to a specific lesson.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so then we would have to kind of build up a lot of those to tag them onto as many lessons as we could. But that was originally where we started thinking.
Yeah, and we did our kind of like hustle around that area. And we made some videos and we learned a lot, I think, in terms of like tone. And I think that tone carried through to this project as well, in terms of like, we're not super formal. We're pretty everyday language focused, kind of
And we
like
try
our
to cut right to
friend.
the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like we try to trim all the fluff, all the fat is trimmed, and we get right to the good stuff as quick as we can.
Yeah. And then we got a grant right when I was about to leave for Florida in 2021 and we brought on Amber for that part to look at practice-driven professional development is what I call it. But we call it that because we're saying the teachers are driving kind of like their instruction and their take up of the practices, and we're tying it quickly or closely, I should say, to practice. And so that's what PDPD is, practice-driven professional development. And it's based on an incremental professional development model, kind of how we've talked about it in the past. And John Starr had a really nice, I think it was a PDK article, right, in 2016 around that as well, that we tap into a lot as well. And then, Amber, do you want to talk
Well,
about
Amber,
instruction?
yeah, Amber, what led you to, join up with these crazy kids?
Well, I think when they moved more into the professional development approach, it's kind of was like a natural fit for me because that's
Yeah.
where my research was sitting, but also I was doing a lot of ambitious professional development and thinking about these really big scoping, year-long intensive PDs, and they weren't always working great. And so when Sam and Zandra came along and were like, "Hey, we want to think about small suggestions, really incrementally. How are we tapping into what teachers are doing, but at a smaller scale? Can we scale it out more so it's not this year long where you work in one school with six teachers and hope for some sort of change from that?" And so that's where I came into the project.
Well, and it also seems like just this idea of almost going back to what Sam was saying about like, hey, we're not making these huge swings and like, and but even the struggles that you're talking about, Amber, is like, hey, let's start where the teachers are at. It was like asset based perspective of like, hey, here's what you're doing, you're comfortable with. Let's not completely abandon that, but like, hey, here's some added value we can give you to what you're doing. And I don't know, I just yeah, I really like it. So
And I
Yeah,
think a lot of it was driven by Sam and Xandra watching so many videos of algebra teachers during their flipped project together
hmm,
that it was like, this is a lot of what we ubiquitous practices in instruction, and let's build on those. Teachers are doing these things in the classroom. Let's build on what they're doing and then make small suggestions based on that.
yeah. And just to kind of encapsulate that idea that we're kind of talking about, I would say an instructional nudge, we could define it as a small, modest instructional suggestion for a teacher. And then the way we think about the nudge is that it's kind of defined by like the teacher themselves. If the teacher thinks that that idea is something they can incorporate right away, then that's kind of like a successful nudge where they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good. I can try that. I can do it."
yeah,
If we make something that we think is a small friendly suggestion but the teachers don't like it, that was kind of an unsuccessful nudge. So in a sense, the to be a nudge, it's definitely small. We're trying to make it like a friendly suggestion for them about their instruction, but it's really judged by how it's taken up by the teachers. So the teachers get to basically tell us, was that a good nudge? Was that an effective one? We try to think about it as like high uptake, meaning that the
yeah, yeah.
teachers will take it up. Maybe many teachers take it up, but also the teachers might take it up and keep doing it. That would be high uptake. And we specifically sort of think about that differently than high leverage or some other practices where like the math ed field of PD has some great ideas, and we think they are great ideas, but it can sometimes be a heavy lift to get those up off the ground.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find the ones that are the quick, easy lifts. That's kind of our incremental sort of philosophy.
So what? So I mean, we should probably go before we go too much further. Like, let's give some examples. Maybe it's either your favorite instructional nudge, or maybe it's one that's you see like, hey, this is one that's being taken up a lot by the teachers that you've had a chance to work with.
Can we each give a favorite
Yeah,
one?
yeah. Let's do it.
I'll start with super wrong, kind of right. I
Yes,
really like it.
yes.
So, this nudge is for any problem that has an answer. It kind of works really well with like when there's a particular answer, maybe computational or not. It could be a symbolic answer as well. But basically, all you do is you ask students to come up with a wrong answer and a rationale for why you know it's wrong. And they can place it on this continuum from either super wrong to kind of right, which some people are like a wrong answer is a wrong answer, but I would argue there's shades of wrong. And having kids articulate why they think something is more or less wrong than something else is a really good exercise for formative assessment and things like that. So if you had a problem like 5 + 2, what's a super wrong answer? Five, because it's like, you know, less than what 5 + 2 is. And I know the answer has to be more. And how wrong is that? I don't know, probably like kind of wrong. Kind of right, I guess.
Awesome. Amber, what about you?
I think one of my favorite nudges is rate and review, where you ask
Yeah.
teachers to provide a worked examples, and the students have to rate the worked example, give it 0 to 5 stars, and say why they think it's a great example or not such a great example. And you can kind of use things maybe you want your students to use an example, a worked out example of like, oh, kids aren't using this strategy like number lines for adding. Let me try to sneak it in that way. And kids get excited about getting to rate something, and they kind of like can attend to the math a little bit more because they're looking at it. Sometimes they just say it's a 0 because it's wrong, it's a 5 because it's right, and you gotta tap into a little bit more like, but what about the strategy? And if it's wrong, you can ask them to rewrite it, which kind of levels up the nudge.
Nice. Sam?
I'm going to do two quick ones because these are actually from teachers in our study. These have kind of emerged as two of the favorites.
I think we all know which one you're gonna. Well, me and Amber know which
We
one.
know which one you're going to say first.
Yeah,
I'm
first.
gonna. They're alluding to first attempt, which is maybe my personal favorite, but I was going to go with the teacher's favorites, which one of their favorites is called Leave a Trace. And that is just the idea of, for the teacher, don't erase everything from your board. Like if you're doing some examples, don't do one example, then erase it, then do the second example. But you can actually leave a trace of the first example on the board while you do the second example. It allows the students to see both of them, and then you can maybe connect or compare. You can also like leave a key idea up on the board for a while so students can look at it while they're working. So it's basically just the idea of don't erase everything. You might actually leave a trace and keep it up on the board. That's been a favorite of teachers. And it's kind of just a reminder to them, like, hey, you might want to keep that up. It might be helpful for later connections and students being able to look at it. And another one that's a favorite of the teachers is a really basic one, which we call it put a bow on it, which is just for the lesson. Before the lesson's over or before the students leave the room or leave math block, just put a bow on it, like summarize of today. And that's one that teachers are like, they kind of knew that they wanted to do that, but they needed our little nudge to remind them. And they're like, thank you for that nudge. I've been trying to do that more now. And they really like it to just have some conclusion. And it might just be 15 seconds or 20 seconds to just kind of say like, hey, you know what we really worked on or what we figured out today is this. And you kind of say the math idea. We noticed, because we have watched a lot of teaching, we noticed that a lot of teachers are good about saying the math idea early in the lesson or maybe early to middle of the lesson. But our nudge was to just be like, hey, recap that or kind of summarize it real quickly at the end, because at the end might be when the students have kind of clicked or figured it out. And also it's just a nice way to finish before they leave the room. So,
well, and I mean, just even those two right there, it's just showing you like, hey, that's not, those are not big. There's, I mean, not even like to say, the other two with like they're rating the responses and, coming up with the wrong, like I mean, this is just leave the stuff on the board, like just move over, move over 4 feet and do another example, or just that 15 seconds of putting a bow on it. Like those are, I mean, so even with your nudges, there's even like ranges of these.
Yeah. There's what we're noticing from the teachers is some of them don't require any prep time at all. Like they're all small. They're all supposed to be kind of modest in some extent, but some of them require no prep time. The teacher can just do it live. And sometimes it only takes 15 seconds, 30 seconds. But yeah, the teachers are also telling us that they like that flexibility. First of all, they can pick which nudges they want to do. But second of all, they like it when there are some where like, oh, I can just do that in the moment. I don't even need to have prepped any materials ahead of time or anything.
And just to go back to like how Amber said, like a lot of these came from flipped, I'll just share for put a bow on it. Like we watch so many videos where the kids just run out because the bell's out and it's like, but they've been working for 30 minutes on like independent practice ahead of that. And it's so they're running out the door, but then kind of the big idea of the lesson, we're like, oh, it would have been nice if they just like tied in that big idea at the end before the kids run away. So a lot of them were kind of inspired from these practices of things that, as experienced math educators were like, oh, this would be nice. And it's a good, effective math practice. And there's some research base that ties into some of these. Well, pretty much all of them.
Well, and does anyone want to talk about, I mean, because we previewed it, first attempt, like Sam, I know
I can just say it. I can say it real quick, which is just, again, we see a lot of videos where the math teacher starts explaining a math concept or starts going through some worked examples. And a lot of times that teaching is really insightful and well thought out and well organized. But we know from research, and Sinha and Kapoor did a really nice meta-analysis, we know that it's not the most effective for conceptual understanding to start teaching the students right away. It's more effective if you let the students try the problem or try the idea. Like, hey, you try it for just a moment. And then once you've gotten your head into it, once you've kind of rolled up your sleeves a little bit, then we can come around and the teacher can kind of help guide them through. That's quite a bit more effective in terms of conceptual understanding. So first attempt is just the nudge to say like, hey, are you about to do your lecture? Or are you about to do your worked examples? Pause for 1 minute or 2 minutes, the students first on the same thing, like the same problem that you're about to show them, but have the students try it first. And then you can go ahead and keep doing your same notes, just like your lecture or your worked examples, just like you have prepared. So again, we're not trying to change like the teacher's whole teaching. We're just sort of suggesting like, hey, if it works for you, you could insert 1 or 2 minutes for students to try it at the start. That's the first attempt. and then the teacher can go ahead and give their, teacher-led instruction.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, just even think like I was like trying to teach somebody how to like play a video game. It's like, hey, just futz around with it for a second. And then they're, hey, you kind of got an idea about what B and A kind of do. Now we can kind of go in and tell you a little bit more because you got a little frame of concept or a frame of reference. So one thing, and want to go a little bit more because I mean, these sound fairly simple, but there's like layers, and then you provide some scaffold. Like just you've this stuff, the website, everything is designed well. Like it's good to look at. Like, and then the video comes on for Super Wrong Kind of Right, and there is Amber's voice just guiding us through on how to do that. It's wonderful. So, what are some design decisions you made to help make practice-driven PD user-friendly? Because I think that's another thing is like I really feel like I can give someone a link to something, and it's like everything is right there for them to like, oh, I know exactly what this is, and I think I could put it into play fairly easily without having to do any hand-holding on the person I'm sending it to.
I mean, I feel like one of the things that really matters to me and what I feel like matters to a lot of people that is maybe underappreciated in our field is design. And I'm pretty militant about design of slides and things like that when we present. And I think that our project is also just pretty militant about making things that look good and are easy to use and just easy to navigate. I think when you see all the garbage on teachers, paid teachers, that looks pretty and clean, but there's no substance. I think part of the appeal to things like that is that it is pretty to look at, and there's a lot of bias towards good-looking materials and reference sheets and things like that. And so I think as math educators, we have good substance often, but we ignore the design elements to our own detriment often. And I think that was a guiding principle of this project is let's make things that people want to use. And if you want to make things that people want to use, you have to consider the design. And I'm sure Amber and Sam.
And we usually do a less is more kind of approach. So it's usually like stripping back to like what's the core of this idea and how can we make it as clear in as like little space as possible. So with our nudges, we have a one sheet. Like first of all, it's going to fit on one page. That was like a principle of the project is this stuff is going to fit on one page. And that came from interviews with teachers and asking them like, what would you actually use? What are you looking for? And they all were telling us, we don't really want to read a whole book. We don't want to read a whole article. We basically have a few minutes. Back to the 2-minute teacher's guide idea. Like they're like, we have a few minutes. So like if you can get it on one page, it's just more likely that they'll actually be drawn to it and take a look at it. So we're really kind of trimmed back to like on like a title, we have a hook with it, and we put like a central example right in the middle of the page to just sort of, if you look at that, the goal is you can already kind of tell what we're talking about. And then we have a few punchy little things around the margins, a couple suggestions, a caution, a couple ways you could level up if you want to go further, but those are very tight and punchy. They don't go on and on. Like, so those are some of like our principles. It was always like less is more, get to the point.
And when we created the videos, we wanted them to be very short because even when you watch a 2 to 3 minute video, sometimes it even seems long. And so thinking about how you can really truncate it down into a tight video that you want to watch the whole thing.
Well, and do you have an example, like just with let's go Super Wrong Kind of Right, or whatever example we want to give that we just talked about, like elevating them up, right? Like on the bottom, it's like, hey, if you want, hey, here's some things you can do, which I like the position
level up. Yeah.
What are some examples of that? Like, and again, it's almost like a super nudge or something like a nudge and a nudge, whatever.
So for Super Wrong Kind of Right, usually you have the student create a wrong answer, and they can have the openness of where they're creating a wrong answer. So it could be super wrong, kind of right, somewhere in the middle. A way to level it up is you could give a particular point or two on that continuum, and you say, hey, can you make a wrong answer that would go here and a wrong answer that would go here? And how would you know? Or you could have the whole class orchestrate a set of wrong answers, and then they could place them on the continuum as a class to see kind of what they're attending to and what they think makes something more wrong or less wrong. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think another quick example could be like with put a bow on it. So put a bow on it. We just in our nudge, we just say like, hey, as a teacher, you can give a 15-second recap or 30-second recap of like the math idea. But a level up could be if the teacher wanted, they could get the students involved. Like they could ask the class, like, what was the main math idea that we kind of figured out today, or what's that? But we put that as a level up, and it's all optional to the teacher. Like, some teachers might be like, oh, yeah, I am going to get my students involved. I think that's going to be a good way for us as a community to kind of like identify the math idea of today. But other teachers are like, no, 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 I'm fine doing it because I'm going to have clarity. I know like what the main math idea I want them to walk out the door is. And they also sometimes will say like, I don't want it to feel like a little mini test at the end. Like, I don't want it to be like, can you tell me correctly what the main math idea was? They're kind of trying to move away like, no, 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 we were just learning something and I'm going to name what it was that we learned today. So for us, we're like, absolutely, we trust the teacher, whichever one's going to work for them. And in some cases, the nudge that gets the uptake might be that the teacher just wants to do it. But for other teachers, they might say like, no, I want to have my students involved. So we do this as these like optional level ups, and we trust the teacher to take it how they want to.
But part of that too, Sam and Amber, if you remember that like Denise Spangler gave this nice talk. I feel like it's 2010 because I feel like I've cited it for 2010 a couple times. I can't remember where it was, maybe a PME&A or something. But and she talked about it was AMTE. Was it like the Judith Jacobs lecture maybe or something like that? And she talked about like personalizing and differentiating PD for teachers. And I remember part of our conversation around the level up too was that some teachers might already be doing some of these things or like take it up readily and kind of be ready for more. And we didn't want to hold them back. We wanted to offer them something too. So that was kind of a way also to differentiate the nudges for teachers that were ready to go on or already doing something but wanted to do something more with that nudge.
Now, did you see, I mean, with all these nudges, have you seen most of them like in practice? Like, or did they come from like, how did you, again, there's lots of thought behind what I'm seeing here, but like, how did you generate some of those things? And also some of the other things like the critiques or cautions and like, was that working with teachers and seeing this in practice? How did those come about?
Well, I think the caution came about because we wanted to be very hands off. But then we started talking about like unintended harm, like what could, so rate and review, for example, is using a worked example. And then we were like, oh, but we probably should tell teachers not to use a kid in the class already's wrong example because that might cause harm to that student. And so when we were playing around building these, we would try to think about like maybe what's the one caution we don't want a teacher to do with it, because we also weren't about fidelity of the project, like, oh, you have to do this nudge this one way, and that's the only way we would count it as being a nudge. And the teachers have taken up things. We have one called confidence meter, where we meant it to be like you put a little meter on a worksheet and kids would kind of draw in how confident they felt solving the problem they just did. And so many teachers took up that nudge, but did it whole class, where they would ask kids about their confidence level. And we're like, oh, yep, that's awesome. That's great that you did it that way. And so we just wanted to like make like just kind of ensure that if something maybe could go wrong that we had thought about, we just wanted to put that caution there ahead of time.
And so a lot of those that Amber's alluding to came from like project discussions. We have a great team of graduate students. We have postdoctoral scholars that are on the team. We've had a good group for multiple years, and we've talked through like, what are level ups that are possible? Let's kind of brainstorm those together. What are cautions we want to put in there? We kind of hone in on the important ones. But in terms of generating the nudges originally, some of them came from research, and we sort of took research that was kind of ambitious and we tried to strip it down to like, what is a small like nudge version of this? Some of it came from our own experience, but some of it came from the teachers. So like we have over 50 teachers in the PDPD project, and we watched them and interacted with them for a whole year before we did any nudging. We were just trying to get to know their teaching style, what they were already doing, what are their strengths. And when we were watching the teachers for that first year, we had a little note in our team memos, which was like, are there any possible nudges from this teacher? Which would be like, do we see the teacher doing something that we want to package it and spread it to other teachers? And so some of the nudges could come from that as well. So it was really like we were drawing inspiration from a lot of different places. But then we were running it through this like less is more, make it smaller kind of gamut that resulted in eventually a nudge out the other end. We also designed some for particular research purposes. We probably don't have to get into here, but like some of them we tweaked on certain variables because we had a research question that we wanted to address with those. And
I'll just add, they're catchy, or we try to make them catchy for a reason, because we're trying to make them easy to remember and kind of like memorable. Each one has a title, like a name, and they're usually like fun, at least for us. I don't know if everybody else thinks they're fun, but like we think they're fun. And then like they have a hook, and Sam's been pretty consistently saying like between the title and the hook, you should kind of get an idea of what the nudge is about. But for brainstorming these, I'll just say that like a lot of people are bad at coming up with nudges because they come up with very ambitious things that are hard to put on a single page or communicate slowly. And I think, Amber, I'm going to use you as an example. When she came on the project, she had notions and stuff that were still, I think, very ambitious, as did our postdoc Paul when he came on the project. And we're like, they're ambitious, they're ambitious. We were like, we need a button for that. So they are very small, and they also need to be something that like has some substance behind it. Like it can't just be like, kind of nothing to drive it at all. Like we're trying to like anchor it into something so that it is legit.
Like 30-second dance party. Like might not.
Yeah, like
might
what
not
is that
anywhere.
going to do for
Yeah,
your
yeah.
math? I mean, maybe it wakes the kids up if they've been working for 50 minutes or something. But.
Yeah.
And then you pivot.
Yeah, that's right.
It's another nudge.
What are so you can tell, like, again, the conversation, the thoughtfulness behind this too, and again, like trying to make something that can be handed off to say is like a complicated process, and like all the work that you've done with each other and trying to hone these things down. So you can tell the research is here, and like these are, again, thought of very carefully. So what are some key takeaways that you have learned from your research of the practice-driven PD? I mean, you talked a little bit about some, but I mean, like, what are some like ones like, hey, these are some big ideas here?
It's the teacher's perception of how small a nudge is for them to take it up or not. And so everyone wants to know. And we've done a little bit, like there's some clusters of nudges that maybe more teachers have taken up than others, but it's not like every teacher took up this one nudge. And really, when they talked about the nudges that they liked the best, like one person was like, would love a nudge and say, I use this all the time in my classroom. I find it really easy to use. And another teacher would say, oh, it was too much for me to get that nudge ready to do with my students. And so it's the teacher's perception of prep time that really drives whether or not they take that up and keep it going actually in their classroom.
Yeah, I would second what Amber's saying, which is like around the specific nudges and how they get taken up or not, it really seems to matter about the individual teacher and how they perceive it. But I would step back and say, like, for pretty much all the teachers in our project, and also we found this with a lot of teachers when we've been sharing this across the different states and different events, many teachers like this low intensity approach. Like, we are not signing them up for hours of training, or we're not saying you have to join this project to meet on Saturdays every month for a year, and we're not training them on like, how do you implement this quote unquote correctly? Like, that's not even part of the conversation. It's very much just like, we have some suggestions, here they are, like, we're happy to pitch them to you, but it takes about 2 minutes to pitch them. And then the teacher can go and run with it. And I think it's almost universal that the teachers are, thank you for this being like an easy thing to take up, and it doesn't take a lot of time and it's not burdensome, and they can kind of have creativity and run with it. And we've also been surprised and happy to find that the instructional leaders and the administrators also send us like thank yous, like, thank you for doing this support that is not like overbearing, or it's not taking up hours and hours of my teacher's already busy schedule. It's really like, we can slip this to them quickly, they can do it, and then it can actually go pretty well and they feel good about it. So like, there's kind of, to me, I think we have data on this even, but also anecdotally from like when we go to different events, there's a really positive response to this like low intensity approach. But then Amber's right. Once you get into the details of like, what nudge are they drawn to and why, and how do they perceive it, it's very individualized.
And I agree with everything that's been said. And also I'll add on some more maybe obvious in retrospect, but also kind of, I don't know, I don't know if it's disappointing, but like, teachers are very, very busy, and even when compensated for participating in a study, the amount of time and devotion that they will put toward searching for resources is quite low. I mean, understandably so. I'm not dogging on teachers at all. So for example, we would go into our end of year meeting and just talk about the nudges and stuff. And then we would find out that they didn't realize there were videos because they didn't scroll down far enough. And it was on the same page with the one pager, but they like may have downloaded the one pager and just not scrolled down a little bit further. And that's probably on us, like maybe we should have just made it more obvious or said like video, PDF, and we're doing that for a new project to see if it's more clear. But also the list of order matters greatly, it seems, into how far they go down a list to look for things. So like if you look at the hit counts on our websites or on the learning management system we use for the research project, the order, the first ones, the earlier ones on the list always get like so many more hits than ones lower down. So, I mean, I guess the takeaway for us is that if you want people to actually use and see things, don't sequence it in a sensible manner in terms of like sequencing it cohesively, sequence it in terms of like importance of understanding, because again, I might do a progression of ideas that make sense in a storyline, but if I really need to get something to see something at the top and the bottom of two different parts, put those real close to the top if you really want to see them, because otherwise they're not going to see them. So things like that, I think.
Well, it goes back to the importance of design that you're thinking about too. Like, I mean, just even like, the position of where things are, or even too, like thinking like, okay, so then what goes on top, even the ones that you're like, everyone seems to take this one up very, a lot. So like, okay, maybe this is one that like might hook someone in, but like, oh, this is good stuff, right? Or oh, this is not so intimidating, right? Like just leave a trace, right? Like, hey, okay, I can tell that they're just offering some sensible advice that I can take up really quickly. All right, I might now scroll a little bit to see where.
Or
that
you
next
might
one is.
not leave a trace first because you don't see such an impact on the kids, because the kids don't showcase, like it's not a super engaging kind of thing that you would see like the kids having fun with. So
Yeah.
you might do one that the kids will like have a good time with and that is successful on the first go round, because then I think that would generate, yeah, but like exactly that
Yeah.
kind of conversation is the one we're having.
I mean, I did super wrong kind of right. That's what I've been showing people, and then everybody's really excited about it. So that's good. They're like,
That's
"Oh,
awesome.
great idea." There you go.
Teachers also liked like the choice part of it. They didn't have to do all the nudges. We were just like, try one, try two, like, and so just being able to go through and select. And then like what Zandra was alluding to, that success matters a lot.
Yeah.
Because if they did a nudge and it didn't go well from their perspective, they weren't more likely to go back to it again.
Yeah, I guess if they just like did the leave a trace and they're just sitting there like looking and seeing like everybody says like, "Huh? I left it up, huh?" Maybe, yeah. Maybe for some, might not be as well. So after, so you've done all this work, and it sounds like you're doing more work. Uh, I mean, you already said what you're going to do differently, maybe with the design of a website. Well, what else? What have you done differently, or what will you do differently going forward after having done all this work with the practice-driven PD?
So many things. I mean, I think the delivery of how we get them to teachers is something, if I had infinite resources, I would have done differently. I think texting them one a day or something probably would have been
Oh,
higher uptake than having them on the learning management system, but we couldn't figure out how to track the analytics if we didn't put it in a learning management system. So kind of like trade-offs for research purposes. But I think how you deliver things to people and at what cadence matters a whole lot. So do you want daily, and this has led to like new projects that I'm like kind of playing with timing of things. So like, do you want things daily as you're teaching them or in clusters ahead of a unit you're teaching? Or do you want them, like, how is the timing the best for teachers? I bet it's contingent on the teacher is probably what we've learned from this project. Like different teachers want them different ways. But again, I think that matters a lot. And if you're trying to get people to use something, you probably need to get that timing kind of right for when they're actually ready to use it or wanting to use it. So that's kind of what I've learned. Also, that one page is maybe not sufficient for all teachers, most teachers, because they wanted more. And there was a very wide fidelity envelope or envelope of implementation around these nudges, which is surprising because I thought they were pretty clear in terms of like how you would scope it out, but the implementation or like the envelope like was wide around like how these actually looked in practice, which was interesting.
Anything else that you would think about different things to do
I
different?
mean, I think the videos that we made the first time around were like 3 minutes max. And I remember sitting in a presentation with Zandra next to her. I think Sam was leading it and played a video, and we're like, oh, I think even this is too long. And so really trying to make it around like a minute because it can still videos, you get to a point where you're like, oh, and I'm shutting it off. So
Yeah.
really getting that concise idea in a video very quickly.
And I was just going to comment. I took the question like a little bit more broadly. I was thinking about like myself, how I think differently or what I do differently, like as a math educator. And I think I'm way different now from having worked for years in this like incremental approach. Like, first of all, when I see ambitious kinds of professional development for math teachers, I just immediately start calculating like what's the probability that it will actually happen?
Mm.
Like, a group of teachers, will they actually do this like grand vision of instruction? And I'm kind of like, man, that's really hard. Like, even if they want to, it's really hard to do. And you need principal support, you need curriculum, you need the schools to buy in. Like, the students are going to give you back. Like, there's all these reasons that I'm like, yeah, I think the probability is pretty low that that really ambitious thing will happen. And if it does happen, I don't think it's going to spread. So like for me, I kind of am like jaded on like the very ambitious stuff. And I see a lot more of this like momentum building and things that we're doing with our incremental approach. And I'm also thinking differently about what is the role of that grand vision of like an inquiry-based, student-centered kind of math instruction. I used to think of it as actually the goal that we're trying to have teachers teach in this like inquiry-based, student-centered kind of way, dialogic instruction. Then I started to shift to maybe like, well, it's not the realistic goal. Like, not everybody in the US is actually going to be teaching that way, but maybe it's our like aspirational target or something. It's like we are trying to get there and we'll come up short, but we're at least like striving for this ambitious kind of vision. But now I'm actually in like a third place. I'm in a place where I like you can kind of just put that vision aside and don't even use it and don't even show it to the teachers or your pre-service teachers, or whatever. That's where I am now. I'm more like, let's just like work on the actual nitty-gritty of like doing math instruction. And I'm going to base it on like what math instruction is actually happening right now. And I'm just going to get into that. That's going to be my vision, is like, what is math instruction right now? And that's what we're going to work from. That's what we're going to work on. We're going to try to see if we can make some improvements. We can see if we can find some places to do a little bit better, a little bit more engagement, a little bit more conceptual understanding, a little bit more equitable, like inclusion of students and ideas. But I don't really have any use for like, to put it bluntly, and this is just for myself. I don't want to speak for Xander and Amber, but just for myself, I don't really have any practical use for like the grand vision anymore. Not even as an aspirational thing. I feel like it just causes separation. It just seems like idealistic and it seems separated from like what's actually happening on the ground in schools. So I'm much more like, let's get down in the dirt, in the real world, and let's work on math instruction there. But it's actually been really, really fun to do that. So
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's given me a lot to think about because I've ever since I think there was a PMENA. What was that in Greenville? Maybe when you and Charles I think had a poster, a little
oh
poster where
yeah,
you
Munter,
stared
Munter and I, we did a debate
or
poster
Munter. Yeah,
where
yeah,
we stood on opposite sides and actually had a
yeah, yeah.
debate across
Uh,
the poster.
that was one. It was creative, and two, it was like just like I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I know. Sam, I appreciate you putting that
Well,
out there.
and I will say I'm okay with that inquiry and student-centered stuff being like this possible future.
Hmm.
But to me, it's off in the future. It's not like I'm not going to put it front and center of like the work that I do. It might be off in the distance as like a possible future that increment and start going towards it in like some way. But it's not like what I bring in to the center of my thinking now is like what we need to do if we're working with teachers or if we're doing like teacher education. But I
Yeah.
know I'm kind of off as an outlier in that. I guess I'm radically incremental.
I
Hey,
think so.
well, just quick aside is like I was trained right away to do Core Plus, which was wildly different from the way I traditionally taught. And then, that district shortly after I left to go to grad school, like got rid of the curriculum and went back, just went completely backward. And then I was like to, a traditional rows and columns teaching it like of student. And I was like, oh, and it was like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of effort to take it there. And then now where are we at? And like, how do we build on from there? So anyway, that's yeah, it's tough to get people to see like, hey, here's a different way of teaching. So I appreciate you. That's Sam. Okay, let's get critical. So what would be the major critique of practice-driven PD?
Oh, there's probably quite a few. I mean, to go to Sam's point, I was like, when you were talking, Sam, I was like, it's kind of sad to give up on the vision to some extent, right? Because if you've ever seen like a really awesome, like student-centered, engaged lesson, it's really great. I haven't seen many of them. I think that's Sam's point to some extent, but it kind of feels like you're not crediting teachers enough or not. I think this could be a critique, right? Like you can say you're not giving enough credit to teachers for being able to change and transform their practice because you're kind of throwing in the towel and saying like this. But I think that's more of if you see this as a consolation prize rather than the goal of incremental PD. So, but point taken. For work in equity spaces where like you're trying to improve students' lives who have been in a system that is very problematic and has perpetuated a lot of inequities in schools, it doesn't feel satisfying to say, like, let's just do a little better at a time when kids are being harmed in systems that are not, well, that are, carrying out as they were designed, but are not great for kids. The counterpoint to that, because we've gone through a lot of these, and the counterpoint to that is like, yeah, but like this will maybe do better for more kids immediately. And I still think we need people that are like change makers and that are really pushing for big reforms alongside this work, because you need both people working from all angles because it's such a complex problem and with all communities and all stakeholders and stuff.
We addressed this in one of our essays that was in PM&A, where we talked about this critique of like math systematically is doing harm, especially to certain groups of students. And we recognize as a team, we recognize that there is a lot of harm that comes from math and like the infrastructure of how math is done in schools. And so then the motivation there is we need to make like transformations to math instruction now. And we agree on that sentiment. But what we point, a lot of math ed has focused on the transformational change part. And what we're trying to focus on is the now part. Like,
Yeah.
what can we do that will be taken up immediately? Like, it will make Tuesday better than Monday, or it will make next week better than this week. So we're trying to find, and we're just trying to study and then offer it to the field. What are some ways to make immediate changes, but they might be kind of small? And then other people seem to be working on how do we make transformational, like profound, deep changes. But those are hard and might be a longer endeavor. But while that's happening, like what are the small, quick wins that we can get?
And I think when we present on this, a lot of questions that we get is what are you incrementing towards? People want us to be incrementing towards something. And really, it just goes back to that John Stark quote where he said, instead of making a 90% change in 10% of the population, how instead are we making a 10% change with 90% of the population? And really thinking about how we're just asking teachers to do something a little bit differently that they might already be doing, but there isn't currently. I mean, I think, maybe that's what other people can take up is, can you increment towards something? But we're just trying to impact student engagement a little bit more, try to, think about conceptual understanding, but also it's just like, did you make one small change? And that's a win for us.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say another critique. Uh, I can come up with a lot of them. I mean, you should be able to come up with a lot of critiques for anybody's work, right? Because like we want this dialogue because that's how we all get better. I think is like, they're so small. So do you really see the impact of these things on teaching practice or on student outcomes, which is a valid question in the day and age of accountability and things like that. And we've been trying to study that. But again, it's difficult because there's such small changes that to pick up on the nuance and the changes is challenging. So I think that's a fair question for us to consider.
And one other quick one I can throw in is it goes along with Amber's, which is like, what are you incrementing toward? So one fair critique that we're still grappling with is if we base nudges on conventional teaching, because that's what a lot of teachers are doing, and so we're sort of like, hey, I see you doing that. Here's a little suggestion for it. It might make it a little bit better, but we're still sort of improving conventional teaching, to sort of put it like simply. There's a critique that you might actually be reinforcing the teacher to be more committed and like dedicated to conventional teaching, which might make it harder to do like a transformation to student-centered, to more equitable kinds of things later. So that's a fair critique, and we need to check like empirically, are they becoming more entrenched? Or there's an alternative hypothesis, which is if we nudge towards student engagement, we nudge towards a few more conceptual things, maybe we're bringing them to the doorstep of transformational change. And once they're on that doorstep, then maybe that door will open and they can go into some bigger changes. To me, both of those are very plausible. And we don't know empirically which one is true, so to speak. It's probably that both of them are true, just for different teachers or in different settings. But that's definitely a fair critique. Like, are we just making them double down on maybe it's improved instruction, but it's not the ideal instruction? And is that actually bad? Because you might be closing the door to the ideal instruction. I'm not sure.
Well, and I, didn't want to say like, hey, this is awesome. Let's just critique the heck out of it. But at the end. But also I wonder too, another question maybe to investigate is like you're providing easy ways for student or for a teacher to say, I am getting a little better, right? And we know that like when we talk about like health improvement, I mean, I get an email from Arnold Schwarzenegger every day, like, oh, these little things you can do to get better. Like not directly, I'm on an email list. Arnold and I are not friends, yet. I'll use yet language. Anyway, but I wonder like how this, like a teacher is saying, hey, I'm doing these little things to get better. Like just as a human being, just to be able to say like, I am getting a little better. I'm adding these little things. And like, not only do I feel better about what I'm doing, I'm more likely to stay in the classroom because I'm feeling like I'm not just doing the same thing over and over again, but I'm making the change. I'm seeing these little like, wow, these kids who are providing awesome wrong answers. That's all leading to some good discussion. Like, I don't know. I just wonder if that's giving some fuel towards, staying engaged for teachers, not just for students.
Yeah, like my everyday language version of my vision for math education that I share with my parents and friends is like, I'd love to make math class suck a little less for more students and more teachers. I mean, like, that'd be pretty cool. It's not like
Yeah.
an ambitious vision, but like a lot of people don't enjoy math class, teachers and students, right? There's a lot of challenges. But yeah, if you can do a little better, like, why not?
Awesome. Hey, so I want to honor your time, but I also want to ask a couple questions. So this is great. We're going to put all the links in the show notes. I'm going to grab some of the things like the PME&A essay must be out there somewhere too. We could probably link to that as well. So, but we're all experienced teachers. So what is the best thing you've learned lately to help you teach better? What's the best thing, Amber, what's the best thing you've learned lately to help you teach better? Come on.
I mean, it has to be a small suggestion, really. Like, help me teach better or help
Yeah.
others teach better? Help
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
teach better?
Just like some you like picked, oh, I'm going to do that. I mean, this is coming from those that are like creating nudges. So like, doesn't have to be that. Anything that you've seen or done or
I've recently been like inspired by like the power of a nice diagram. This is just even in my own teaching.
yeah, yeah.
Like a simple diagram, but it gets to like the core of the idea. I feel like I always liked visuals, but I didn't realize how powerful those are. So for me now, it's like, hey, if I have it could be an education idea, it could be a math idea, whatever it is. If I can put it into a visual sort of um, arrangement, keep it simple, but have it sort of like reveal something about it, I feel like that's actually a really helpful teaching tool. I've kind of
Yeah.
been on that kick recently.
Nice. We just had a good discussion in class today, and like one thing I noticed I was doing is like excited face is probably better than what I could say next. So like if I see a student that has like this super excited and that like you could tell that they want to share something, I'll shut up. Just like, yes, let's go. Let them go and see where that might lead to. So like using their energy. So I'm just excited face is something I'm looking for.
Well, personally, I'm trying to work on being more encouraging because I think that you can grow when you're being encouraged
There you
rather
go.
than often a different perspective we might have when we're working with future teachers.
Great answer, Ann.
Nice. I love it.
I see what you did there, Sam. Um, I think, I don't know if this isn't new, but it's like something I've been playing, like reframing my thinking. Is like, I think a lot of teaching we frame around the teacher and like, what do I need to do? What is on my plan? And I think if you just let go of that, and it's kind of like your excited face, Joel, it's like, what do my kids need? And if you just stop asking what I have to do, what should I use, and say like, what do my kids need, my students need, whatever. I think it like changes your mind shift and it like makes a more productive conversation because then you're not like, my pacing guide says tomorrow I got to do this, so I got to do this, or I've been teaching this class for 10 years, so I know next week is this lesson. You're like, no, but is that what my kids need? Is that what my students need? And then you have to let go of your plans and you have to be adaptable and you have to be like, well, it's going to be more work for me, but I bet your kids like it and you learn more and it's a more humane class period. So
Nice. Love it. All right. My midlife crisis has been twofold. One is the vinyl record collection, and then also and now I've been getting into like Blu-rays, like actual like discs you put into a player because I'm trying to be
I thought you were going to say
intentional.
like Betamaxes or something. I was going to be like, oh.
Yeah. Laser disc, the same size as a yeah, no. Uh any albums or movies that you love to recommend? Any albums or you can do both. I don't care. Xander, you got one?
So,
Oh, it's okay.
oh,
Amber. Yeah, yeah. Go for it.
so I think this is more like I like to recommend it for when, which kind of is as opposite of my last answer. But if you ever just need a good cry, watch Armageddon. The
Yeah.
best good cry movie.
Yeah. He left him, you know. Bruce Willis. What a hero. There we go.
If I find out that somebody is okay with like prog rock, longer rock songs or like very intricate, dense instrumentations and sounds and stuff, then I'm very happy to recommend the Mars Volta. That's my favorite band, have been for 20 something years. Especially their first full-length album, Deloused at the Comatorium. Love that album. Drummer's amazing. So if you like prog rock, that's and you haven't checked them out, they're a great band from El
Fantastic.
Paso, Texas. Used to be at the drive-in, but then they reached new heights with the Mars Volta.
Nice.
At the drive-in was one of my favorite shows I ever went to back in like I think the late 90s, early 2000s.
So
So like
if people on a different kind of music, if people know Lizzo, so Lizzo has said one of her top two inspirations for her whole way she approaches the stage and everything is Cedric Bixler Zavala from the Mars Volta. She like name dropped him specifically.
Wow.
huh,
There we
interesting.
go.
I'll give you an album recommendation just because I re-listened to it recently and it crushes from like beginning to end. So I'm a big punk rock, post-punk rock kid. And then there's this band called the Owls who put out one self-titled album in 2001. And I listened to it a lot when I was in Gainesville, Florida in 2001. I'm back in Gainesville, Florida 20 something years later. It still crushes. It's like all the dudes from Kappa Jazz, but one guy. They just went on a reunion tour. They're so good too. But the Owls, front to back, it's a great listen.
Nice. Beautiful. All right. So we got a lot of things to put in the show notes. We're gonna have the links to the the practice driven PD website and some of the other things that we mentioned here. The 2 minute teacher's guide, we can even do that. But anything else to the Math Ed podcast, we can do that as well. Anything else that we need to promote out there?
Well, with the holiday season coming up, if there are parents or
Yes.
people with young children, especially age 4, 5, or 6, I wrote a children's book with a Mizzou student here, Leon Thomas, and I'm very proud of it. It's called Missing Letters, an alphabet book. And so it's great for pre-readers like age 4 or 5, but it also is really good for 5 and 6 year olds as they are if they want to have a little bit more fun with alphabet books than the typical alphabet books.
Awesome book. Anything else? That's good.
Uh, with the holiday season coming up, I will promote being kind to one another and actually having dialogues and discourse with people, especially those that you might not see 100% eye to eye on, but having a humane and productive and interesting conversation with people. It doesn't have to be about politics, it could be about math education, but trying to read and understand other people's point of view so you can better understand your own and think critically, I think is a great thing to do this holiday season.
That's a great one. Thank you.
And just finding joy where you can every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time on Amazon Planet. We appreciate it and cannot wait to share this with others. So thank you, folks.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us on. Yeah, our website, visit the website for all the nudges and some more coming. So
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right, there's my conversation with Amber, Sam, and Zandra. My hope is that you heard, one, the tremendous amount of work that they've done in this area, in studying it and thinking thinking about the design and everything. My hope, yeah, it's hard to miss, like that you can see like how invested they are in this work. Two, that the collegiality, I guess, or just the enjoyment that that you can see that they have in working together. I think there should be some joy in our work. And I love, seeing the interactions that crew has with each other at conferences. And like, you can't help but like wanting to like, sit beside one of them or a group of them as they are interacting and just like kind of like soak it in a little bit. And it's just fun. It's fun when people that are passionate about something in their work and you see them doing it together, and then their willingness to share it with others. And I just hope that some of that comes through in the podcast, because I enjoyed having that, and just the small miracle of getting everyone on the same page and on the same calendar in the same Zoom room is I don't I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful. So that's my conversation. And my hope is that also too, that if you're interested at all in any of these materials, you head to the show notes, head to their website, see some of the work that they've done. And also too, they've got several other podcasts, like Sam Otten has the Math Ed podcast, but they've talked about this work in other places as well too. And you can find that on the website, their Practice Driven PD website as well. All right. No submissions to the mailbag because we've been rolling these out fairly quickly, so that's fine. And now we're going to talk about the physical media of the episode rather than the album of the episode. It could be an album, but today it's not. Today last time we talked about the movie Rad, which I would love to hear in the mailbag if anyone else has ever watched the movie Rad with again Lori Loughlin and Talia Shire. And there's the guy that owns the camp in Dirty Dancing is in it as well. He's kind of an evil guy in the movie. Anyway, we're not talking about that movie. This week we are talking about Hoosiers, my favorite basketball movie. Gene Hackman, Dennis Hopper, Barbara Hershey. Just a nostalgic movie that, unlike Rad, I can legitimately say is a good movie. Gene Hackman is an outstanding actor. It makes you feel like he loves the game of basketball, like just as the fiery coach, Knight-esque, and giving a little bit, if you know the movie a little bit, maybe even more Knight-esque than Bobby Knight-esque than he should be. But just, and also the story of a team that comes together, and there's something about that too. And I don't know, like watching. So one of my favorite memories in the past few years related to basketball is watching the Milwaukee Bucks win the NBA championship in, I think that was 2021. And I gotta say, that was was it 21 or 22? Anyway, when they won, they beat the Suns. And watching those games and seeing this team come together and seeing these players start to come up. And then you also see it in like when you start to get to know a team that's making a run in the March Madness tournament or something, or, even like if you're lucky enough to be part of a high school team that's starting to come together where guys or girls are making big plays. We had here at the University of Mississippi, we had 2 teams that went to the Sweet 16, and you saw players coming in and making big plays. And it's, I don't know, just the getting to know a team and seeing how they come together and seeing how they're using their using their strengths. And that's what I think in this movie of Hoosiers, you see like this team is barely a team. It barely has enough players to field the team. And at one time there's only 4 players on the court because of, things that had happened with the team. But watching that and getting excited for seeing a team come together, people using their gifts or gifts and abilities to help make the team better. I love it. I just love it. And even though I've seen it so many times, it's one of those that I can watch again and again and again. And when I was getting back into like movies and starting to pick up some discs, I knew like, hey, Hoosiers had to be in one of those first orders. Needed to get it. So that's the movie of the episode, or the physical media of the episode. I got to get some better branding for this. That's going to wrap up this visit to Amidon Planet. Show notes are available at amidonplanet.com/episode 135. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode to help others find this content. You can also subscribe to the email list to receive the Amidon Planet Dispatch for teaching resources and updates from Amidon Planet. Links can be found all over amidonplanet.com. Want to engage further? Submit a question, comment, or suggestion to the mailbag by sending an email to joel@amidonplanet.com. Lastly, I'm always looking to collaborate with those leading others to love through teaching. If you have an event or opportunity, email me at joel@amidonplanet.com or visit amidonplanet.com/about to fill out the request a call form. Thank you for spending time on Amidon Planet. Special thanks to Sam, Amber, and Zandra for sharing their time and expertise. My hope is you go check out those resources. Thanks to Matt Mifflin for the music in this episode. And finally, thank you to all of you out there learning to teach better and be the good in the world by investing in the lives of others. This world is a better place because you have decided to use the gifts you've been given to serve others. Thank you for all that you do.